As tension simmers between India and Pakistan, the UN chief, meanwhile, has called for maximum restraint. The UN here seems to be appealing to India and Pakistan, saying that exercise maximum restraint and ensure that the situation doesn't deteriorate. Well, Srinjoy is with us right now. Srinjoy, the message coming in from the United Nations, however, when it comes to condemning and calling out a Pakistan terror state and its actions on Indian soil, here is UN saying that they ensure the situation doesn't deteriorate or doesn't fuel into something more serious between the two countries is an appeal that is now coming in from the United Nations.
Yes, the first thing that India would expect from the United Nations Secretary General is a clear condemnation of this attack and clearly stating that terrorists were responsible for it. That's the first thing India would expect from the UN. India would expect support and overwhelming support, primarily because 27 innocent Indian men have been killed in this attack. And clearly the responsibility has to be fixed, and the UN has to make sure that the responsibility is fixed, has to make it very clear who is responsible for the attack. Of course, the UN has asked for maximum restraint because the UN sees India and Pakistan as two nuclear powers, which both countries have nuclear weapons, and clearly the UN is right to that extent. But this is a terror attack, a very cruel, dastardly terror attack. There should be absolutely unequivocal condemnation of an attack like this.
What's stopping the UN from condemning this terror attack in India? Srinjoy?
Yes. That's the very good question. You would expect all those people at the UNHQ in New York to know all the details and to know what caused this, and to also know, be aware of the fact that these terrorists, all of them, 4 or 5 of them who came in, were trained, armed, financed, and sent across the border by the jihadi network in Pakistan, which has full support and full protection of the Pakistani establishment. Now that should be known to the UN, and the UN should take according measures keeping all of that in mind. These are things the UN is aware of, or at least should be aware of.
Well, India,
because this has been going on,
needs as far as the United Nations to at least accept and call it that it's a terror attack, a cowardly terror attack, and it has been sponsored by Pakistan. However, here the United Nations seems to be appealing to both the governments of India and Pakistan to exercise maximum restraint and to ensure that the situation and the developments do not deteriorate any further.
Of the terror attack that occurred in Jammu and Kashmir on the 22nd, 2 days ago, which killed a large number of civilians. But we very much appeal to both the governments of Pakistan and the government of India to exercise maximum restraint and to ensure that the situation and the developments we've seen do not deteriorate any further. Any issues between Pakistan and India, we believe can be and should be resolved peacefully through meaningful mutual engagement.
Seems to be calling for talks and dialogues with terror state Pakistan, but contrary to what the United Nations have been saying, the rest of the world is standing with Bharat. There is global unity against terror. World leaders who are standing in solidarity. Even the UK Parliament has condemned the attack and has called it cowardly and dastardly. With the UK Parliament now slamming when it comes to this horrifying terror attacks that have been reported on civilians in Pahalgam, Jammu and Kashmir. Well, Srinjoy, at least now it seems that the UK Parliament is giving an example. Open out condemnation that has now come in as far as when it comes to the leaders of the world stand in solidarity, extending their support to India.
Yes, support has come in from the British Parliament and also from the American House of Representatives. It's very important that the world realizes what has happened. As we discussed earlier, a large number of diplomats were invited by the MEA yesterday, and of course, three major points were made. The first, India thanked all these countries for their support. Secondly, India made it very clear that in the past, these kinds of attacks have happened, which means that this is not just a one-off attack. This is part of a series of attacks that terrorists had launched on India in the past. And thirdly, all of India, apart from this little area in Jammu and Kashmir, is safe for everybody. These points were made yesterday. Naturally, these points will be conveyed back to the countries concerned, and you have already seen the first reactions. The British Parliament already condemning the attack, and also the US House of Representatives.
Absolutely. We'll listen in exactly what the UK Parliament has said over this, outwardly condemning when it comes to this attack, calling it as cowardly and dastardly. Here is the UK Parliament that has been slamming the Jammu and Kashmir Terror Act.
Now, Madam Deputy Speaker, it's rightly been mentioned about on Tuesday the systematic murder of Hindu pilgrims in Pahalgam in India. The sad reality is that the terrorist group that is thought to be responsible for this, the Restraint, these are a Pakistani organisation that deliberately targets innocent people in Jammu and Kashmir. Already the Indian government have revoked visas, closed the border and expelled officials from Pakistan as a result. Probably most importantly, they've suspended the Indus Water Treaty. Now, I think this is an important aspect that we need the Foreign Secretary to come and make a statement to the House on what could end up being a very quickly escalating situation between India and Pakistan. Tonight, there'll be a vigil outside the Indian High Commission. I will be representing the opposition. I understand there'll be representatives of the government as well. We must give our reassurance and support for the government of India in making sure that they apprehend these terrorists and make sure that those responsible for supporting them are also brought to justice. My understanding is that the Pakistani government and the Pakistani military have condoned these attacks. So I'm sure the leader will join with me in condemning absolutely these terrorist atrocities and also making sure that people who visit Jammu and Kashmir are held safely and do not have to suffer such incidents yet again.
But well, here is the UK parliamentarian who has come out to unequivocally call it as a terror attack. Pakistan that has been named as responsible for carrying out such terror-sponsored acts as well. And of course, when it comes to the condemnation that has been pouring in from different corners of the world there, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has thanked the world leaders. We'll be back after a very short break.